We're then going to wait a few seconds, and then we'll retry this. And then we can play around with it and see if it breaks. So test. Okay, so it looks like it went through successfully. So let's look at the DynamoDB console. We should now see Ryan switch to Penny. There we go. So Penny did work. However, you saw that job is now empty. So we definitely don't want that to happen. So let's go ahead and scroll up to the top. And that's because we're using a put. So let's actually look at update. This is something that is very weird about the AWS documentation, is that update, so you're doing a put request HTTP method, but put is for creating something new in the DynamoDB language, whereas update is basically updating just one field. So now let's go ahead and change our code to basically reflect that. So we'll scroll down to the update by user ID. I'm going to add all this in underneath it. So we can delete this part. We can delete this part. And we're just going to say, instead of put, we're going to say update. And then our params looks like table name, but instead of item, it's key. We'll say user ID. Is equal to user ID. Now we're going to pass two things here. One is for user ID and one for item. This is using something more complex, which is update expressions. So let's go ahead and see if there's a simpler way of doing this. We'll look inside the documentation. Table name, key, attribute fields. Yeah, so it looks like we're going to have to do this in a kind of a more complicated way. We basically need to have an update expression that is going to set this stuff for us. Okay, so here we go. So this is what we want. Let's go ahead and switch back to our Lambda code. We'll add this in. So this is 3 fields. Okay. So instead of our 3 fields here, we're going to have just one field. We're going to say set name equal to name, or we can say n. And we can even say job equal to j. The name is item.name, and the job is item.job. Okay, so as you can imagine, this code is pretty fragile. There's a lot more optimizations that we can make around this to make it less fragile, but at least for the time being, you can probably see that this is a lot of hard coding. And for instance, this update expression, you know, what if your data changes, right? What if you have 100 fields? Do you really want to program name equals n, job equals j? What you really need is you need a function just to create this update expression dynamically. And to do stuff like that takes a little bit more time and energy and effort, but it definitely is worth it, because then you get away from having to do like this hard coding values. So what you can have instead is maybe your code will search the item object, say, okay, I found name and I found job, and then it will dynamically create this string here. and then it will populate this object as well. So I've done this multiple times. I did it when I worked for Nike. I did it when I was on a contract for another client. And I've done it for 2 or 3. Like, I've done it every single job that I go to. This is a problem that happens where doing DynamoDB updates and having to do these update expressions, you have to resolve this problem over and over again. So at least for now, we'll keep it this way just for simplicity. But do know that if you want to expand on this, you can definitely create functions to generate these values. And I think it's actually recommended as you start building real applications. So if you're at work and you're trying to build this, or if you're building a side project, it could actually be worth it for you to actually invest time into this. It may take a couple hours to do it, but it'll definitely be worth it. Cool. So let's keep going. So we put ID of 1. We add in our name here. So now let me look at doing name equal. Actually, let's go back to DynamoDB. Let's add back a job. We'll say a pin string job, and we'll say, what is the job? Like, that doesn't make sense, but we'll keep it. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to update the name this time. So we're going to say name is Ryan. So we should see Penny switch to Ryan. Let's test. Okay. Now if we go back, notice that we didn't pass bike, right? We didn't pass a job. So in this case, what should happen is that this job should not delete. It should only update the name. Okay, so bike, name is Penny, name Ryan. So something did not go as planned here. Okay, so we got a status code of 500. So let's actually look at CloudWatch. So now we have three CloudWatch log groups here. We have create, get, and update. Let's go into update user. And then if we look at the statuses here, looks like we just got a 500 and it kind of died quietly. Pass parameters ID. Let's look at the code. Okay, so user ID I don't think is being passed in here. So let's actually take a look. Let's delete this out. For item, we're going to pass user ID, and we're going to pass json.parse event.body. Okay, so now this should be make more sense. Basically, it's going to handle user by ID. The first argument is the user ID, and the second argument is the event body. Let's go ahead and save it. And now let's try to rerun this. Invalid update expression, attribute name is a reserved keyword name. Let's go look at this real quick. So in our Lambda function, we are saying name, so we can't actually say name. So what we need to do is we need to pass this like hashtag thing here. So we'll say hashtag job. And then we need to look at the documentation for this. These are called expression attribute names. This is a whole another can of worms. This is why people get paid to do this work, because obviously, as you can tell, there's some complexity, right? A lot of times this complexity gets taken for granted, but there is complexity. So name, and then the attribute name will be, sorry, let me look at that. This will be name. I'm actually going to keep this as a 1 letter. And then we'll say hashtag J equal to job. This will be J. And okay, so the hashtag, that one gets pulled from the expression attribute names. The colon, that one gets pulled from the expression attribute values. And now with these mappings together, we should be able to do this. Okay, so let's test. Okay, so we got invalid expression. Attribute value is not defined, right? So what happens is that we're only passing name, but in our Lambda function, we've passed a job here, so :J. Let's just pass job and name, and then problem solved. Let's save it. Then we have API gateway here, and we'll say the job is hero. So now we should see Penny Bike change to Ryan Hero. Okay, so we got a DynamoDB update item IAM issue.